Hi, and welcome to Fibretown. I'm Emily, and this is episode 13, and it is April 17th, 2013. I'm coming to you this morning from my kitchen with my girl Al. Yeah, she's just hanging out today. She's kind of mad at me because I took her out from outside. She was laying in the sun, but I wanted her to say hi to you guys. There she is. So I'm Chainoffools on Ravelry and Plurk. And come and see the Fibretown Ravelry group and enter your April FOs in the thread there. And let's see, where else am I? I am on YouTube, iTunes. Thank you guys for the reviews and the star ratings. They really, really mean a lot. I'm also Fibretown on Instagram, hipcast.com, and I think that's it. Yeah. So it's Wednesday morning, and I have an FO to show you guys. I have a hoe. I have lots of spinning. I've got some progress on my whips and some other miscellaneous stuff. So, Alice, you want to get down now? You're a good girl, Al. Yes, you are. All right, so she's going to get down, and I'm going to show you guys my first show and tell. All right, remember that loop bump that I spun up? Loop. It was the Rosebud Merino Bamboo Tussa Silk, and it spun up. I spun about 120 yards of a Navajo ply. I decided to go ahead and knit it into a hat. I did the Navajo ply to keep the colors together. And this is the Spring Beret. It has not been blocked. This is the Spring Beret by Natalie Larson. It's kind of cute. I think it might be a gift. I love this pattern. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I knit it on the ribbing on size 9 and the rest of the hat on a 10. There it is. I didn't use all of the loop bump, but I was afraid I was going to run out at some point. I like it. It's got a nice slouch to it. And it's very cozy. So, yeah, that turned out pretty well. As a beanie, it looks ridiculous, but I like it as a slouch hat. You can see, I haven't done all the ends yet, but there were a few parts of my Navajo ply that were too thin, or the yarn had broken when I was plying it and the join wasn't so good. It's hard to join yarns back together when you're Navajo plying. There's one. See that right there? I had to break it. There was another one in the pink. But all in all, I don't mind that. A few extra ends to weave in. That was sort of a get back into Navajo plying. It's one of those things that practice makes progress, definitely. So if you are doing a lot of Navajo plying, you're going to get better at it. And I'll show you my second Navajo ply in the spinning section. But to continue with show and tell, I do have a hoe. This is also, well, if you don't count ends being woven in, this monster sock is out of HD Yarns in the Dynamics colorway, and I knit this on US 1.5, that's a 2.5 millimeter. And I usually knit my vanilla socks 2 at a time on a long magic loop, on a long needle. But, as Marianne observed, I wasn't doing that with this one. And that's because when I knit my hand-spun socks, I used my Carbons DPNs, my 1.5 DPNs, and the sock just flew. And I'm a slow sock knitter, so I wanted to see if that was a fluke or if I could really knit, if those were really helping me knit socks faster. And I knit this in a week with a very, very long cuff. I didn't measure the leg, but it's more than my standard 6 inches. See, it's longer than the sock blocker. So yeah, I really actually liked using the Carbons DPNs. And I wasn't sure, actually, the other reason, I wasn't sure how I was going to start the second sock, if I was going to do the same color progression or if I was going to change it up. So I just went ahead and did the one at a time. And It's lovely. I did, as you can see, about an inch and a half of ribbing, 2x2, and this very long cuff, a slip stitch heel flap, and I think I heard about this idea on the Just One More Row podcast with Dana and Brittany. I think it was Dana who was saying that, you know, the typical heel flap is slip one, knit one, all across the row, and then purl back. And she was saying, why not slip one, purl one, and then do a full knitting row? Does that make sense? So instead of doing your slip stitches on the knit row, you do your slip stitches on the purl row. So that's less purling. It doesn't take as long, so you can knit back faster. So that's what I did here. It looks good. Let me see. I don't think it changes it all that much in appearance. And I did my bottom of the foot gusset, and you know, when you don't do an afterthought heel with stripy socks, you run the risk of having stripes being all wonky. And yes, I did get this tiny little 1-row stripe, but look, I mean, you've got other stripes that are 2 rows, 3 rows, so I can live with it. Looks better on this side. So that is my HD yarn sock. I have the second one cast on. Let me just go ahead and show you that now. This has been very recently cast on. And yes, I'm using my Carbons. Oh, great. Just lost a few stitches. I am using my Carbons DPNs, and I decided to start the cuff with a different color repeat. As you can see, I didn't even really get excuse me, to this color repeat on this sock. I have average feet. They're size 7s. They're not huge. So yeah. Hopefully this will go as fast as the other one. All right, what else do I have to show you? Okay, so the sock is 1 whip. My other one is the Old Town. Let me grab that. I finished the second sleeve. Ooh, it's upside down. But anyway, you can see the 2 sleeves. They're even seamed, both of them. And they have to be seamed before you can continue with the rest of the bodice. So I have picked up, I'm now on phase 10 of the pattern. You can see what I have for the bodice. Started right here. It's lovely the way the stockinette goes this way on the top, and then it goes up and down. So you have different directions for the stockinette. Let's see if I can get that closer so you can take a look. So yeah, I'm on the last phase of the pattern, phase 10, and that is just knitting this, I guess, the skirt of the cardigan, along with the lace panel on each side. So I'm still on the first skein of the Blue Moon Fiber Arts BFL Sport in Winter Solstice. And I've just got a little bit left, but I haven't even had to break into the second gigantic 600 and some yard skein. I think it's a really good value yarn, and the fabric is lovely. And I'm knitting that on the body on US 5s, which is 3.75 millimeters, I believe. And the ribbing is done on US 4s, which I think is a 3.5 millimeter. Okay, spinning. All right, so I showed you what I knit out of the loop bump, and you know I'm on a quest to knit what I got last year at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, which, by the way, I feel like last week's episode could have practically been a Maryland Sheep and Wool drinking game episode. Like every time I say Maryland Sheep and Wool, you take a drink. Probably for the next few weeks, you'll be able to play drinking games to my podcast. Okay, so I told you I was going to spin the fiber optic yarns, chocolate to aqua gradient. I showed you all a picture of it. Let me see if I still have that on my iPad. It's going to be cool to see how it started out. Yes, I do. There it is, chocolate to aqua. And I love it. I love the result. It's awesome. Here it is. There's a nice, that's pretty true colors. I seem to be on this spinning bulky kick. For the longest time, I wanted to spin everything thin, 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 and then I started knitting that whippoorwill. And no. So I spun this in a day, plied it the next day, and let it rest overnight. And just getting back into Navajo plying, I am finding some tips and tricks that help me on my ladybug. I treadle slowly when I Navajo ply. That's one thing. And the ladybug has a tensioned lazy Kate, and I actually do put tension on it because that way, as I'm drawing the singles to ply them, they come off slowly under tension, and they don't tangle up, which is not fun to deal with when you're making a crochet chain with your fingers. What else? I treadle slowly. I used a tensioned lazy Kate. I'm not sure what this is called, but the ladybug has like a second break that like a little handle thingamadoodle, explaining this so well, that you can bring up and it will slow down the break band. So I did use that too. And it's so round, like 3-plies are generally round yarns, but this is just like, it's delightful. Delightful. Nice and round and just plump, and I think that this is going to be a hat as well. Maybe a manly hat. Although I tend to just borrow my husband's hats. So let's see, I got 80 yards. So it's really it's a bulky. It's quite bulky. Let me show you. And it's much more consistent, and I don't think I got any breaks in it like I did in the loop. So practice makes progress. So there's my fiber optic, and that was again the chocolate to aqua gradient. I will be getting some more of this at Sheep and Wool. Take a drink. Okay, let's see. Okay, I showed you last week my Into the World Gwydir Polar Silk Blended Top. I spun this up. Again, pretty heavy. And I decided to do this fractal spun. Do you know what that is? Fractal spun is when I liked the color repeats. I opened up the braid, and I felt like the colors were in sections, and there was a progression to them. It wasn't a gradient, of course, but when you fractal spin, and probably most of you know this, but for those of you who have just heard of it and are curious, I split the braid, I opened it up, I split it vertically all the way down its length. And then I kept one side of that and spun it from top to bottom. And the second vertical piece, I split again and this time I split it into 3s. Just wanted to go into 3s. Usually I hear people say 4 or even more. And what happens is that as you spin, sometimes the color repeats will match. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm not explaining that well. As you ply, the color repeats will sometimes match up. So you might get purple touching purple or green touching green for a bit, but then you're going to get green touching purple, purple touching white, and then eventually again the colors will meet up and you'll get a swath of a single color. Oh, Alice is eating something. It's just a toy. So here is the Into the World Gwydir Fractal Spun. Now, I made a mistake with this. I spun the first part of the braid on the thick side because I just come from doing the fiber optic, and I was used to doing it a thicker single. And then when I did the smaller pieces, I spun them thinner. So what happened was that I ran out of the thicker single and I had lots of the thinner single left over. So I only have 80 yards of this. But you can see, let me see if I find a place. There's lots of barber pulling in this, but let's see. Here is a section where the purples are matching up. And let's see, here's a section where the greens are matching up. Here's a section where we get two greens that are really contrasty. So 80 yards of a fractal spun. Not the best, but it's just still drying. I put it outside and it was almost dry. I left it overnight thinking there's no rain predicted. It rained, so it's damp this morning. So what I did with the leftover thinner singles is I Navajo applied them. Now you can see the difference with all the barber pulling here, and here all the colors are together. Take a look. So I have 40 yards of Navajo ply. I don't know, maybe I can make some baby socks for some knitter friends. Yeah, I still haven't knit for any of those babies that are coming, but they're all summer babies, so there's the Navajo. All right, so again, that was the Into the World Gwadir. I think that's how you say it. My Fin fleece is all washed. Almost no loss on that whatsoever. It's a small fleece, and I think that's generally typical of Fins, 2.5 pounds. I don't think I had any loss, really. It's an awesome fleece. I want to try to comb it, but I don't want to buy combs. I just want to try it and see if I like it before I purchase combs. So I wonder if I could take some of the fleece to Maryland Sheep and Wool and try out some combs there and see how it looks. I might do that. That is it for spinning. All right. You all know I was cleaning out my stash and whatnot. I wanted to show you something I found and start telling you the story of my history of knitting. History of Knitting by Chainoffools. So my granny, my grandmother, and my granny, my great-grandmother, both crocheted. And I watched them do it as I was a kid, and I think I was given a lesson or two. But in the mid to late 90s, I was like, I want to knit. And what I wanted to knit was a Harry Potter Gryffindor scarf. So I got myself this book, which I found this weekend. Look at that! Special left-handed section included. I wonder if this is still the same book out there on the shelves in the hobby stores. My favorite model is that guy. Look at him! A little tense. His shoulders up around his ears. Maybe he's just trying to keep that vest from falling off. Anyway, so I taught myself knitting. Can you believe it? The problem was, nobody explained to me. I would knit a stitch. This was all on my own, pre-YouTube. This is it. I only had this booklet. So, somehow cast on. I would get my needle in the stitch, wrap it around. It was hard to get my needle in the stitch because my gauge was so tight. And then I would knit the stitch and I would tug it. And so, it was extremely unpleasant knitting. I got about this much of the scarf. I learned how to tie on another color. And I was just tired of forcing my needle into these tight little stitches, and it just never clicked for me, and I abandoned the scarf, and it was probably about 10 years later that I picked it up. So I will tell you guys about that another time, because I want to show you something else I found as I was cleaning things out. Alice, you stay. She's trying to get back outside. Before I knit, oh shoot, I wanted to show you something else. I'll save that. Before I knit, I did a lot of cross stitch, and I'm seeing cross stitch on all sorts of podcasts all the time now. So I thought I'd show you what I had done. I really like these big medieval looking patterns, and I found one that I had to cross stitch. So when I was in college, I lived in France for a year, and right before I came home at the end of that year, I was on my own in Paris, and I visited, I think it's the Museum of Medieval History. And I went by myself, and my aim was to visit a series of tapestries that I had always enjoyed. And I took the audio tour, and I was so moved by the description of these tapestries. It's called La Dame à la Licorne, which means the lady and the unicorn. And this is one. I found a pattern. I found a cross-stitch pattern. So each tapestry depicts a sense, except for the final one, which is just the sort of the culmination of the series. This is the sense of taste. The lady is tasting, I believe, pears, apples. So, yeah, I framed this one up, and I started a second one. This is probably more than 10 years old because I haven't done anything on it. I found this laying around. This is the one in progress. This is the sense of hearing. You can see they are playing an instrument. And it's unfinished. I still have all the thread. And I'm debating, should I pick this up again? I don't know. The cloth does have a little hole in it somehow that started there. I don't know if it was bugs, but I think it's outside of where the finished product will go. See, this is the other edge. It ends abruptly. So I might be able to get away with it. So I might pick that back up and do the sense of hearing. So, yeah, I found all sorts of other little cross stitches I had done. I need to frame and maybe give to people. So I might do that, but it's going to take away from my knitting, spinning, weaving time. And there's one other spinning thing I want to show you. Marilyn Sheep and Wool, take a drink. This is Rambouillet from Reflections at Rocklands. And I'm going to spin this starting today. I think it's 3 ounces. It's really squishy stuff. And I just want to see if it's something I want to buy more of. And maybe I'll dye this as well once it's spun. It's very strong. Just twisted it a little bit. So got lots of coils of that in here. And I think I'm going to do a 3-ply because a nice round yarn, not a Navajo, but a true 3-ply. Nice round skein of that would be lovely. All right, last thing to tell you about today before I sign off. I want to do a Marilyn Sheep and Wool prize giveaway. So as I go, I'd like to shop for you guys. So here's the task. I'm going to open a thread. Go on the Sheep and Wool website. Look at the vendor list and see what excites you. I'm not just, and then go in a thread and say what you would like to have from Sheep and Wool. And, you know, just keep it under $20, $25, which is a lot of stuff. But, and then I'll go and look for through the thread and get some ideas and see what inspires me. And I'll go and pick out a prize to give away later in May. Some of my favorite vendors, I'm going to go to Optic, Loop, Hobbledehoy, the Fold for Socks That Rock. I'm drawing a blank on some other ones. I'll get some of my favorite soap and maple cream. And anyway, just tell me what looks good to you and we'll go from there. Last year, my first stop was Jenny the Potter because I wanted one of those mugs. And I got one, but you know who I met in line? One of the Knit Girls. Lala. And then at Into the World is another place I'm going. And Into the World I met Leslie and Diane from Knittables. So it's going to be star-studded. I can't wait this year. Seems like lots of podcasters are going to be there. So I'm going to try to go both days if my foot cooperates. And so far it's you know, I'm doing much better every day. I see much better. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. Come find me on Ravelry. leave me a star rating or a review on iTunes. And yay! I will see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.